Tessa Quinn stood outside the upscale restaurant, her hands trembling as she held onto her 3-year-old son's hand. Oliver was wearing his favorite Batman shirt, his curly hair still damp from the bath she'd given him an hour ago. She'd tried to explain that Mommy had a special dinner tonight, but Oliver had clung to her leg and cried until she couldn't bear it. The babysitter had canceled at the last minute. Stomach bug, she'd texted, and Tessa had no backup. Her mother lived 3 states away, she had no close friends in the city yet, and the dating app she'd reluctantly joined specifically said this was supposed to be a dinner date at 7 o'clock at Marcello's, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Tessa pulled out her phone and composed a text to the man she was supposed to meet. Landon Hayes, 42 successful businessman, his profile had said. They'd been messaging for 2 weeks, and he'd seemed kind and patient. But now she was about to ruin what was probably her only chance at a normal adult evening in months. I'm so sorry, but I have to cancel. Babysitter emergency. I'm really sorry for the short notice. She hit send and was about to turn around and head home when her phone immediately rang. It was him. Hello? Tessa answered nervously. Tessa? It's Landon. I just got your text. Where are you? I'm actually outside the restaurant, but I need to go home. My babysitter canceled and... Are you with your son? Landon asked, his voice calm and without judgment. Yes, Tessa admitted. I know this is completely inappropriate for a first date, and I should have just canceled earlier, but I was trying to figure something out and... Bring him in, Landon interrupted gently. What? Bring your son inside. We'll have dinner together, all 3 of us. I already have a table. Landon, I can't do that. This was supposed to be a date, not a family dinner with a stranger. Then let's call it a family-friendly meeting, Landon said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. I'm already here. The table's reserved, and honestly, I'm curious to meet the little guy you talk about so much in your messages. Unless you'd rather not, I completely understand if this makes you uncomfortable. Tessa looked down at Oliver, who was examining a leaf he'd found on the ground with intense concentration. She thought about her empty apartment, the frozen pizza she'd have for dinner again, the loneliness that had been her constant companion since Oliver's father had left 2 years ago. Okay, she heard herself say. We'll come in. But I'm warning you, he's 3, and he's not exactly fine dining material. Neither was I at 3, Landon replied. Come on in. I'll ask the host to set another place. Tessa took a deep breath, squeezed Oliver's hand, and walked into the restaurant. The interior was stunning. Warm lighting, white tablecloths, the quiet murmur of well-dressed people having elegant conversations. Tessa felt immediately out of place in her simple jeans and white t-shirt, with her canvas tote bag and her son in his superhero shirt. The host looked at them with barely concealed disapproval. But before he could say anything, a man stood up from a corner table and waved. Landon Hayes was even more handsome than his photos, with dark hair styled impeccably, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than Tessa's monthly rent. He looked exactly like the kind of successful businessman whose profile had intimidated her in the first place. But when he approached them, he crouched down immediately to Oliver's level. Hey there, Landon said with a warm smile. I'm Landon. What's your name? Oliver, who was usually shy with strangers, studied this man seriously. I'm Oliver. I'm 3 years old and I like Batman. Batman is excellent, Landon said solemnly. Do you know what Batman's superpower is? Oliver shook his head. He doesn't have any superpowers. He's just a regular person who decided to be brave and help people. That means anyone can be a hero if they try hard enough. Pretty cool, right? Oliver's face lit up. Really? So I could be Batman? Absolutely, Landon confirmed. Then he stood and turned to Tessa, extending his hand. And you must be Tessa. It's wonderful to finally meet you in person. Tessa shook his hand, feeling tears prickle her eyes at the simple kindness of how he'd spoken to her son. I'm so sorry about this. I know this isn't what you signed up for. Actually, Landon said, guiding them to the table, this is exactly what I signed up for. You mentioned in your messages that being a mother is the most important part of your life. I appreciated that honesty. Meeting Oliver is meeting the most important person in your world. I'm honored you'd trust me with that. At the table, a server had already placed a booster seat and was setting a third place. Landon caught Tessa's expression, surprised that he'd planned this so quickly, and smiled. "I called ahead while you were walking in," he explained. "Ask them to bring some crayons and paper too if they have them. Seemed like it might help." Sure enough, the server returned with a kid's menu printed on paper that could be colored on, along with a small cup of crayons. Oliver settled into his booster seat, immediately absorbed in the coloring activity. Tessa looked at Landon across the table, seeing him clearly for the first time. "Why are you being so nice about this?" she asked quietly. Most men would have run for the hills. Landon was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "Can I tell you something that's not in my dating profile?" "Please. I have a daughter." "Her name is Sophia. She's 8 years old, and I haven't seen her in 3 years. Tessa felt her breath catch. "What happened?" "Messy divorce," Landon said, pain evident in his voice even as he kept his tone even. "Her mother remarried and moved to Australia. The custody arrangement gives me virtually no rights because I was traveling so much for work when we split up. My ex-wife argued I was an absent father, and the court agreed. I get video calls twice a month, scheduled at times that work for Australian time zones. That's it. Landon, I'm so sorry. I tell you this because I want you to understand why I'm not bothered by Oliver being here. Every time I see a father with his child, it breaks my heart a little because I don't get that. So when you said your babysitter canceled, my first thought wasn't disappointment about our date. It was gratitude that you're the kind of mother who wouldn't just leave her son with anyone, who puts his needs first even when it's inconvenient. That's admirable." Tessa felt tears welling up. "I've been so worried about dating because everyone's profiles say they're not interested in single mothers or they want to meet someone without baggage." "Like my son is baggage. Your son is a gift," Landon said firmly. "Anyone who sees him as anything else isn't worth your time." Oliver looked up from his coloring. "Mommy's crying." "Are you making Mommy sad?" "No, sweetheart," Tessa said, wiping her eyes. "These are happy tears. Landon is being very kind." "Okay," Oliver said, satisfied with this explanation, and returned to his masterpiece. Dinner was unlike any first date Tessa had ever experienced. Instead of the usual awkward small talk, they talked about real things, the challenges of parenting, the guilt that came with balancing work and child-rearing, the loneliness of doing it alone. Landon ordered carefully from the menu, choosing things Oliver might enjoy and making sure to ask him what he wanted. When Oliver got restless between courses, Landon pulled out his phone and showed him photos of Sophia, telling stories about his daughter that made Oliver laugh. "She's pretty," Oliver declared, looking at a photo of a little girl with dark curly hair and a gap-toothed smile. "Does she like Batman too?" "She's more of a Wonder Woman fan," Landon said. "But I bet she'd love to talk to someone who knows so much about Batman." "Can she come play with me?" Oliver asked innocently. The pain that crossed Landon's face was brief but unmistakable. "She lives very far away, buddy. But maybe someday." After dinner, as they walked out of the restaurant, Oliver was getting tired. He held up his arms to Tessa, wanting to be carried. Before she could hoist him up, Landon said, "May I?" At Tessa's nod, he lifted Oliver onto his shoulders. The little boy squealed with delight at the new vantage point. "I'm so tall! Look, Mommy, I'm a giant!" Tessa laughed, and for the first time in years, she felt something loosen in her chest. The constant tension of doing everything alone, the weight of being solely responsible for another human being, it eased, just for a moment. They walked to the parking structure where Tessa had left her beat-up sedan, Landon carrying Oliver the whole way despite wearing an expensive suit. When they reached her car, Landon carefully handed Oliver to Tessa to get him buckled in. "Thank you," Tessa said as she closed the car door, "for tonight, for being kind to him, for not making me feel like I'd ruined everything by bringing my son to a first date." "You didn't ruin anything," Landon said. "Tessa, you gave me a gift tonight. You let me spend time with a wonderful little boy who reminded me why I'm fighting so hard to stay connected with my daughter. And you showed me that not all single parents are the nightmare my ex-wife was. You're doing an incredible job with Oliver. Can I see you again?" Tessa asked, then immediately second-guessed herself. "I mean, if you want to." "No pressure." I would love that, Landon said. And next time, Oliver is automatically invited. I mean it. I understand your life comes as a package deal. I'm not interested in just part of your life. I want to know all of it. They saw each other 3 times a week for the next month. Sometimes it was just Tessa and Landon when she could arrange childcare. But often, it was the 3 of them. Trips to the park, children's museums, casual dinners where Oliver felt comfortable. Landon never made her feel guilty for bringing her son, never suggested she should find more babysitters so they could have real dates. This is a real date, Landon insisted one evening after Oliver had fallen asleep on the couch between them during a movie. This is real life. Getting to know you means getting to know Oliver too. 6 months into their relationship, Landon got a call that changed everything. His ex-wife's new marriage was falling apart, and she wanted to move back to the States. More importantly, she was willing to renegotiate custody. She said she's been watching my social media, Landon told Tessa, his voice shaking with emotion. She's seen the photos of me with you and Oliver. She said I've clearly grown up, that I'm not the absent father I used to be. She's willing to agree to split custody once she moves back. Landon, that's wonderful, Tessa said, hugging him. It's because of you, he said. Because you let me back into a child's life in a way that helped me heal and remember how to be present. You gave me the chance to prove I could be the father I should have been all along. When Sophia arrived for her first extended visit, she was understandably nervous about meeting her father's girlfriend and this little boy she'd heard about in video calls. But Oliver, with the fearless friendliness of a 4-year-old, immediately offered to show her his toys. You can play with my Batman cave, Oliver offered generously, and I'll show you how to make buildings out of blocks. Do you like blocks? Sophia, who'd been quiet and cautious, smiled for the first time. I love blocks. A year later, Landon proposed to Tessa not in a fancy restaurant, but in Tessa's living room, with both Oliver and Sophia present. Oliver had helped him pick out the ring, and Sophia had written a speech about how she'd always wanted a little brother. At their wedding, Oliver served as ring bearer, wearing his best Batman shirt under his tiny suit jacket, and Sophia was the flower girl. In their vows, both Landon and Tessa promised not just to love each other, but to love and care for all the children in their blended family. You thought bringing Oliver to our first date would scare me away, Landon said during his vows. But you brought me the exact thing I'd been missing, the chance to be part of a family again, to be needed and wanted not despite being a father, but because of it. You and Oliver didn't just give me your love, you gave me back my daughter by showing me how to be present. Years later, when people asked how they met, Tessa would tell the story of the babysitter who canceled, the desperate text message, and the man who said bring him in without hesitation. She'd talk about how scared she'd been that having a son would make her undateable, and how Landon had proven that the right person doesn't see children as obstacles, but as opportunities to build something bigger than just a couple. And Oliver and Sophia, who grew up as siblings despite having no blood relation, would roll their eyes good-naturedly at the story they'd heard 1,000 times. The story of how a canceled babysitter and a Batman shirt led to a family that chose each other completely and without reservation. Because that's what Tessa learned that night at Marcello's. That the right person doesn't ask you to hide the most important parts of your life. They ask you to share them. They see your child not as an inconvenience, but as an introduction to what matters most to you. And they understand that love isn't just between 2 people. It's between all the people who choose to become a family, however that family is formed. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that the right person will embrace all of you, including your children, and that family is built through choice and commitment, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about blended families, single-parent dating, and finding love that includes rather than excludes. Comment below about someone who loved you and your children as a complete package, or about learning that being a parent doesn't make you undateable. It just helps you find the right person. Sometimes bringing your child to a first date is the bravest and best thing you can do.